It's finally over. The legislature adjourned sine die on Wednesday, officially closing the books on a grueling session headlined by major fights over spending and appropriations. Among them was the debate over whether to separate the maintenance budgets from enhancement requests. So, did all of the squabbling over budget reform make the difference? Did this new policy yield any relief for the taxpayer? And what could the continuation of this policy look like going forward? We will dive into these questions and more on this week's episode of Fiscal Fridays. The fight over separating the maintenance spending from new spending turned out to be one of the most tumultuous moments of the legislative session. Here's a little refresher on what transpired. In the first week of the legislative session, co-chairs Representative Wendy Horman and Senator Scott Grow introduced their plan to make the budget process more transparent. This included several components like digging into the base over the summer, changing the committee presentation process, and expediting the budget setting schedule. But the centerpiece of their plan was to have the legislature vote on maintenance spending separate from any increases agencies would like for the new fiscal year. The idea was that a legislator could fund basic operations while having some leeway to be more scrupulous on new requests. The ultimate goal is to have more debate and more room for dissent on increases in spending. Naturally, controversy arose among some members of JFAC who are aligned with the so-called Main Street Caucus. The group tried to subvert the new process by overriding it and passing their own undivided budgets. Lots of political capital was expended in this process, but to no avail for these establishment legislators. The new process ultimately carried on as planned, with 105 budget bills considered when all was said and done. Today, we are left with only one question. Did it work? It appears the results were a mixed bag. For one, voting behavior appears to have changed. There were several key events that could explain changes in voting behavior on budgets in recent years. These include the launch of the Spending Index in 2019, the revamp of the Spending Index in 2023, and this latest budget process change. The charts here measure the number of budget bills that received a specified amount of nay votes in each chamber. For example, in 2019, there were 71 budget bills that received 5 nay votes or less in the House. But as time goes on, you see some dilution of the ink for the legislature's proverbial rubber stamp. 2024 saw the largest distribution of nay votes in our analysis. The Senate saw similar results. It is hard to prove causation when so many factors vary between legislative sessions. However, we have the benefit of the same makeup of members and the same analysis by the Spending Index to provide consistency. These results seem to suggest there is some effect on voting behavior from the new way of doing business. Did this make a difference? Well, no, not really. Despite these changes in voting behavior, the new process did not save any money. We would expect the legislature to be more likely to just say no to frivolous requests from the governor, lowering expenditures. As of this video, the top line numbers from the Legislative Services Office were not final and public, but our own tabulation here at IFF predicts the total spending for the 2025 fiscal year to be about $13.5 billion. That is $200 million more than what the governor asked for. It is also the third largest increase in spending compared to the governor's recommendation in the last 20 years. Even removing trailer appropriations for new policies didn't make a significant difference in this figure. This is disappointing news for many Idahoans currently feeling the pain this tax season. With these results in mind, we return to the point we made in a previous episode of Fiscal Fridays. The process is only as conservative as the legislators using it. Though lawmakers seemed more inclined to vote against the added fluff, the additive nature of passing this spending regularly gets lost in the shuffle. We see far too many floor fights over budgets that end with the old shtick, trust the work of the committee. But what work exactly? Well, Being that the committee is made up of a supermajority of those who opposed budget reform in the first place, this deference doomed the reform's effectiveness from the start. Additionally, Idaho's spending problem hasn't gotten real for most lawmakers yet. Many were quick to dismiss our state's growing burden on taxpayers and increased reliance on federal support. There were glimmers of fiscal conservatism, however. The legislature successfully killed few new handouts and defunded several failing programs. The coordination on these few key budgets forced a left-leaning JFAC to go back to the drawing board and make changes. To close, regardless of any changes in how we do things, there will be no changes unless we take a hard look at who is doing them. At IFF, we stand by the principle that a reform is only as conservative as the legislators operating under it. We can only hope that with this added accountability in this new process, lawmakers will feel the pressure to restrain their big spending habits going forward. Thank you for supporting the content we produce at the Idaho Freedom Foundation. Be sure to like and subscribe to help spread our message of freedom, family, and small government. Also, with the legislative session in the books, be sure to request your free copy of the 2024 Freedom Index by visiting idahofreedom.org.